I think there's a lot of misconceptions. We are in an age where so many of us feel like we have to be politically correct. And I'm going to say some things that the listener may think is not politically correct. And I'll keep it super clean, but I just want to preface it with that. Not only there are a lot of books, so people can go read these books and I can name some. There are actually a lot of books that are written on the power of community, the power of gathering, but not just how to gather people together, because that's one phase of it. It's how do I even get people here? The other phase of it is your question, how do I keep people in the community? And how do I keep my clients in the community? How do I keep my leads in the community? There's a really good book called The Art of Gathering. And in that book, one of the data points that she talks about comes from the organization meetup.com. We're probably all really familiar with meetup.com. I used it way back. I started using meetup.com in 2011. That's when I first started a business. And I knew the power of getting together with people and building relationship. So I was like, I'm going to join meetups. And then I actually had my own meetup on meetup.com. But there's a chapter in her book where she talks about the studies that meetup.com has conducted. And meetup.com probably has the most amount of data. I mean, they've got billions of points of data on groups that are created that never really form, groups that are created that do form, but how long are they lasting? And groups that are formed that are the longest lasting groups on meetup.com. And what their data shows, and this is where it becomes politically incorrect for a lot of people, your group has to be exclusive. Your group cannot be inclusive. And we live in this day and age where we think that we're going to get canceled or shut down if we're creating things that are not all inclusive. Well, you can go that route, but people aren't going to stay, and you can't actually create a sense of belonging if you are all inclusive. So what does that mean? That means that you have got to, number one, create a community that has a very specific purpose, and there is an outcome and a purpose for why the group exists, but for all of your gatherings. Like what's the desired outcome for your gathering? Whether it's a getting together for a retreat, a live event, a training event. I mean, I'm running a challenge and just a free challenge inside my group right now. Like that's still a gathering. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of your question is like, how do I create a sense of belonging? It's got to have a purpose and it has to have a shared purpose. Everybody's got to be aligned with the purpose. Everybody needs to know what the purpose is. Also, you have to bring people into your community who have like values, like belief systems, and they need to have a lot of things in common. The less your members have in common, the less the likelihood is that that group is going to be able to last. So, for example, let's say, I'm not going to use a business example. Let's say that you want to put together a hiking group. And so you just establish a group that's for people who want to hike. That's amazing. But what if you have elderly couples who are retired in their 70s that show up, and you have the 25-year-old single girl that shows up? Then you've got the, newly married couple that shows up and they bring their 3 dogs. And then you've got, men and women, all age groups, married, not married, divorced, different, whatever. All different things come. Well, you're going to have people in the group who don't believe in marriage. You're going to have people in the group who are allergic to dogs. You're going to have, what if, new mom brings her baby in the stroller? You're going to have people who are annoyed by that. The lady with the stroller is going to slow everybody down. It's not going to last. It's not going to work. So in order for people to feel a sense of belonging, create a hiking group that is for newly married couples in their first year of marriage who are all Christians, who don't have kids, who just bought their first pair of hiking boots, who like easy hikes. That group creates a sense of belonging, and that group will last. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I started a meetup that ended up being one of the most attended meetups in the world. And I spoke at Meetup HQ. And that was one of the things that I did. And it's interesting to hear you say that, but I was intentional about making it a subsect of a subsect of a subsect. And
Mhm.
uh, I didn't hear, this same statistic back then because it was years ago that I did that. But I do know for a fact that I spent a lot of time trying to narrow it down, and I stopped doing it during COVID because I didn't know how to have a meetup when you couldn't meet. But we tried a couple of online ones. But prior to that, we were seeing thousands of faces, 8,000 faces a year in just one of the groups. And I don't know, it was like more than 10 times the second most active group in the area. And we specifically made it as niche as possible. And so it's so interesting because, the second one was more inclusive than we were. The second one was more broad than we were. We were niched and we had more than 10 times the amount of people.